We played better. Let's go take down the field.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brood Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Welcome back to Ultiworld's live coverage of the 2016 Northwest Challenge. And we've got a new one for you. The first ever live streamed Northwest Challenge men's division game. And pretty excited to bring you this one. Washington taking on BYU. And this one should be a pretty exciting one. BYU has been very successful at this tournament so far. Washington, one of the powers of the Northwest, and so much to talk about with these developments with BYU, and I'm sure we will get deep into that conversation as this game goes on, but also what is likely to be a very competitive contest here.
Yeah, it should be a good one. BYU has been great, honestly. They're 5-1. They've lost one. The only loss that they have is to Oregon. They lost earlier today, and Oregon certainly not a team that you feel bad about losing to if you're a team like BYU. This Washington team has had a little bit of bumpier road to this point, but they're a strong team. And obviously we're going to get into this a lot more. BYU does not compete on Sundays, yet they are sitting in a position where they are very likely to earn a bid themselves for the Northwest region as one of the top 20 teams in the country. What do you do if you're BYU and you know that you right now can't even compete at regionals? We'll get into that as the game gets underway.
Yeah, you hate to talk too much about a storyline that's taking place somewhat off the field, but you can't ignore this one as we see the Washington offense get underway. Stephen Benelow here with the disc, one of the primetime players for this Washington Sun Dodgers squad, and now able to get the disc over to the break side. Rush up the line to Khalif El Salam, the biggest name to take the field for this Washington team. Up line to freshman Manny Eckert, but a layout block is going to get things started. Taylor Caldwell on the block for BYU, and they're immediately taking a shot deep. And that one's going to be just a little beyond the reach of the receiver, almost starting with a break. Jordan Hill trying to track that down, but Hill unable to get there.
Yeah, BYU loves to attack and transition. When they go from defense to offense, they are looking to put it deep. They had a lot of scores yesterday in just those kinds of scenarios, and they just missed on one there here against Washington.
And now we will take a look at how Washington will respond to an early turnover. Benelow gets open on the line. El Salam's taking off, and you got to think you're going to put that one up. El Salam trying to fight off the defender, but it's going to be Matt and El Salam with a huge bid, but no dice. Great defense by BYU after the wind pulled that disc away from El Salam's reach.
Yeah, Devin Terry, just nice defense there against El Salam, but turned over on a throw, a forehand over here to the sideline.
And Benelow is going to check the disc in on the sideline. The sophomore handler for Washington was very impressive in his freshman year and has continued that into his sophomore campaign. But that throw is going to sneak away. And BYU is going to overshoot the deep shot the other way, as they have been aggressive to do. Looks like Washington has not adjusted to the wind that we first saw making an appearance last round, and they're throwing some high throws that are costing them in this early going.
Yeah, wind blowing a little bit from right to left. And you see that Benelow forehand pop up in the air as it goes into the wind. But BYU hasn't been able to cash it in. Both of their downwind hucks too far.
And here's the throw over to the open side.
Jordan left back, Jordan left back.
Curdy Rush.
All under. Yeah, clear, Max.
Now Eckert in the middle. Freshman taking on a big role for Washington here. And here's another deep shot from Benelow, looking for Rush. Rush able to take the short throw. Dishes back to El Salam in the red zone. Now looking reset. Eckert trying to get up the line, and El Salam kind of just surveying the field, and then breaks side to cross field here to Eli Savell. Now he's looking for an option. And that miscommunication in the red zone costs Washington again a 4th turnover. Not how they could be looking to start this game, and now BYU probably likely to stay aggressive here on the turn again.
Yeah, I saw a lot of turnovers like that one from Washington yesterday watching them. They just sometimes miss on their reset passes, easy short passes, and that's kept other teams in games against them. They give BYU another opportunity here.
BYU slowing things down a little bit as they squeeze one up the line to Kevin Hodgson. Now in the hands of Ben Olpen, one of their star players. And they'll switch fields. Huge grab there. Nice play by Bryant Boyer to save possession. He'll continue on up the break side to Hodgson. Or excuse me, Olpen. The confusion there is he's wearing the number 8 jersey and the 10 shorts. Now Olpen about 2 yards outside the line. High release break looking for the corner, but another turn and back and forth affair to start this one. Neither team has found the end zone yet, and we're about 9 possessions in.
Yeah, maybe a little jitters from teams here. They didn't know they were going to be on this streaming showcase field until just a couple hours earlier today when we decided to flex BYU into this game.
Here's Tian Chuan Yen. And now Washington finding some space on the break side. Here's El Salam. Huge hammer. A hammer hucking, towing the back line. And they're going to say that was in. And Washington with a hard-fought hold there. Rush able to tow the back line after a hammer huck from El Salam. 1-0 Washington takes the lead.
Yeah, great catch on the back line from Rush. You know, that pretty easy to track as it came in, but had to do a really nice job of watching his feet. As we see it again, El Salam bombs the hammer and back line. Rush toes the line.
And essentially the Northwest Challenge in its first year as a men's division mostly attracted the namesake region. It was essentially a preview of Northwest Regionals here on the men's side, which maybe has some bigger implications than ever before because of the number of bids that the region is pulling in. So much to talk about with the implications of BYU's success this weekend and this season. I mean, this is a team that has played well at major tournaments. You can't say that this is not a team that's good enough to have earned this bid, having competed at warm-up, having competed well against Wisconsin at Trouble in Vegas. They've taken every opportunity. They haven't complained about their situation really at all. They're just a team out there working hard to try and earn their spot and earn the respect of the division.
Yeah, now we'll get our first look at their offensive line.
Taylor Jorgensen swinging that one across, and a zone look here from Washington after seeing the wind turns early on. Bobbled there by BYU. Not really getting anything upfield, and they're looking to work the width of the field. Here's Jorgensen. Over across the Lane Garden. And there's a blade over the top dugout there by Olpen. But not a lot of yardage gained yet by BYU. Garden with the around break. Finds Shoki Birmingham, but then a turnover follows, and now Washington with a chance to break and take a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, BYU offense couldn't get it going there. Just swinging back and forth and then tried to jam it up the line. Schuster with the block.
Crossfield throw from Schuster is well beyond any chance of a receiver getting into that one. BYU is going to get the disc right back, but really very little yardage to be gained so far against this zone. Open side throw, and now BYU's trying to get it moving.
A sloppy start for both teams and both lines.
Yeah, there's some wind here, which has not really been a factor in all the other rounds, but not enough to really take the game completely away from the offense.
No, we're talking less than 10 miles per hour in terms of wind right now. It should not affect teams. Obviously, there's a slight adjustment period after having a day with not a lot of wind.
And Washington doing a great job keeping BYU on this near side of the field. BYU keeps trying to find an opportunity to switch fields, get to the weak side of this zone, but the point of attack is not being given up at all by this Washington defense. Now forced to work this sideline and still have yet to cross midfield by either dimension, BYU. Now, in the hands of Jason McKeon. Garden, over to Birmingham. Now McKeon looking deep up the line, trying to beat the deep shot there, and that one gets by. Now Spencer Hudson dishing, and that's going to be an easy one into the end zone. Birmingham on the score, Garden on the assist, and a nice deep shot there for McKeon to open up the field.
Yeah, BYU, patience showing through. And, that's one thing, when you watch this BYU team play, it's kind of difficult to pinpoint any particular standout players. It's kind of difficult to pinpoint that they're doing anything particularly interesting in terms of their offensive or defensive schemes. But what they do a great job of is being aggressive in transition and playing really good fundamental ultimate. Show a lot of patience, and they get that O-line off the field and keep their defense out there. They're not going to do anything super flashy most of the time, but they are going to stick around in every game, and that's how they've ended up with a 5-1 record so far here at the Northwest Challenge.
Yeah, you know what? I really like that BYU was able to stay patient and weather through, even though the defense really had pinned them to this side of the field. They didn't panic. They didn't take a really difficult play. They got the disc where they wanted to get it into a power position and let one of their big throwers put up a huck. We'll see if Washington stays with that zone or if BYU can force another heavy turn point for the Washington offense. Questions about Washington's depth have arisen through their play this season, and we'll see how they handle this situation against a solid opponent like BYU.
BYU stops a pull play there. It was El Salam trying to get ISO'd in space, and they stopped it.
But here's a deep shot. It's a jump ball to a pack, but El Salam is the first one there as it pushes away from the defense, and El Salam reels it in for a goal. 2-1, Washington leads.
Yeah, El Salam with elite level college speed, and you saw it on that one as he chased it down. That throw went where no BYU player had a chance.
And El Salam, a mercurial superstar, as we see him turn on the jets to close out this play. Really known for his playmaking ability from not only the college level, but in international competition at the elite club level in the mixed division. Be representing USA as a member of Team USA Mixed at the World Championships. I mean, this is a guy with the pedigree and the talent. The production not always quite matching that, though, and this year trying to lead this Washington team to not only nationals, which looks pretty likely based on the number of bids that the Northwest has, although no easy road in that region. But I feel like for them, especially with El Salam, that getting to nationals isn't enough.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house. From printing your gear on our Green Line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
The Washington D-line here. We'll see if they go back to the zone that really stifled the BYU offense but did not generate a break. Here's the pull from Schuster. And that one looks like it's going to head out of bounds. And it's going to be McKean checking it in as he trots it over to the brick.
For those of you looking for Oregon UBC, we flexed this BYU Washington game onto the showcase field. Oregon will be on the stream tomorrow against Washington as we watch a BYU reset turnover.
Yeah, Birmingham just turfing that reset forehand, a little rushed with his execution there. The wind's not going to leave him that margin for error as Schuster picks up with a short field about 30 yards out. And a layout block there from BYU gets them the disc back. Excellent play there from Ben Olpen. Really earning the disc back.
Yeah, just a great underneath layout D on an in cut.
Keen underneath to Dakota Flanning. Flanning looking, reset. Finds McKean. Pick call. It's going to stop play, but Hodson and McKean discussing with John Bjork. Looks like, we'll say he was beyond the range necessary for the pick. Here's McKean. Open side. And he finds Flanning for the goal, and another hold for BYU. Tied it up at 2-2.
Yeah, BYU just does a nice job of getting it back there after the short field turnover. And McKean looking like their most effective player here in the early going with the assist.
Yeah, and you mentioned that BYU's not a flashy team. They're not going to do a lot that jumps off the page. I mean, would you say that they're a system-based team, Charlie? Would you say that they rely on their system to carry them as we take another look at this one?
Layout block
Huge
there.
block.
Open, going horizontal. And, you know, to the idea of system team, I think so. You know, again, I find it interesting, you know, watching them play. It's nothing stands out as particularly, you know, they're not running super rigid pull plays. They like to put it up to their athletes. In some ways, it feels a little bit more like sort of schoolyard ultimate more than it does very sort of systematic based. But that's it's not to say they don't have schemes. They do. They have an offense that they run. They have different, especially on defense. They have a lot of different looks that we'll see today as we see the big forehand pull.
The sense that I get from this BYU team is that they have a great culture. They have a lot of buy-in on the team. You have to have that buy-in to be a team that goes out there and works as hard as they do, knowing they can't play on Sundays.
Yeah, I talked to their coach, Bryce Merrill, yesterday. He said, you know, it's tough knowing that your season ends the first week of April every year. And, you know, they have a B team, and they've worked really, really hard to get to the point where they are now, which is forcing some conversations about what should be done for them as we see Washington walk it in. Nice throw from El Salam for the goal. But, you know, here they are looking like they're going to earn a strength bid, and we have to start talking. Does USA Ultimate need to do something for BYU to accommodate them at regionals? Normally, BYU doesn't even compete at regionals because there's a rule on the books that says that if you're going to start regionals, you have to be able to finish it. And, of course, they don't play on Sundays. So what could happen? Their coach, Bryce Merrill, said yesterday he thinks that there's got to be a way to find a solution. I think he says that if we could get the thought leaders in the room, USA Ultimate, competition committee members, sit down, talk about it, maybe they can play some games on Friday and then Saturday. Maybe they can have more games for BYU in the early part of the Saturday. Maybe they go straight bracket play at regionals. He thinks that they can come up with something if they really want to.
And there's so much to chew through on this topic. You know, Ultimate being a sport mostly funded by the players, not a lot of school support, so adding additional financial burden to teams that may potentially arise from redrawing the format is challenging. They don't have a lot of support from schools, so asking kids to miss extra class is challenging. The question becomes, everybody knows that legally and really fundamentally that religion is a protected class in the United States, but you're supposed to make reasonable accommodation, and where is that line between what's reasonable and what's unreasonable for college ultimate at this juncture? And something I'm sure we'll be discussing more during this broadcast, more during this weekend, and probably in some further content on UltiWorld. Right now, back to this game. We got a good one here, 3-2. Khalif El-Salam making his presence known early with a goal and 2 assists. And that one just gets by. It's all open. Washington transitioning out of the zone. Here's McKean. Scott Birmingham open. Birmingham looking for an option. Stagnant upfield. What? Hudson able to get open here. A little confusion. All the traffic to the same direction there. And El-Salam with a foot block. And we said he's making his presence felt. And now he's doing it on the defensive end.
Yeah, and El-Salam maybe with a little as a hand blocked. El-Salam with a great layout catch.
And now he puts up the forehand looking for Washington's first break. Schuster in chase. He's going to bid. And no dice for Washington. But they're going to give BYU the full 70 to go.
Yeah, it was a great look there. Just a little bit too much on it from El-Salam. We've seen a lot of hucks in the right to left direction go a little too far because of the slight breeze.
And now here's another deep shot from BYU. They certainly are aggressive there. Managed to haul that one in on the goal line. And here's the continue. McKean gets up to grab it. Nice plays there from Open and McKean. And that's a goal for BYU for a whole 3-3 between them and Washington.
Yeah, we're even here, but it does feel like Washington's playing the better ultimate right now. They've had more chances at that break, and they've just missed a couple times. But BYU, this is what they do. They play good defense, they get it back, and then they punish you if you give it back to them. And one thing I wanted to say as we first take a moment to look at the score one more time. Nice job taking the contact there by Olpen, and then just a little flip into the end zone of the forehand. El-Salam, we got that foot block. He was getting away with an illegal mark there. He was right up on the thrower. Hard to tell from here whether there was a contact call of any kind. But, good veteran, hard mark there from El-Salam. Forces Hodson maybe into a little bit of discomfort and then able to throw that foot out there and get the block.
And one of my questions about BYU is how they can manage teams that have a superstar player. If you're a rock-solid fundamentals team with some good athletes, how do you guard in a one-on-one matchup against a guy who is more skilled than some of your best athletes and just as athletic? That'll be a test here in how they match up with Khalif El-Salam over the course of this game. Here we see them taking that matchup away by going to a zone set. They're first to the game. Here's El-Salam on this near sideline.
So basically stopping the swing by leaving somebody back, sort of an unconventional zone look. And that's something they do.
To Banilo.
Yeah, they like to look, show some different zones and junks throughout the course of the game.
Yen to Eckert. Now back in the hands of Yen. Not a lot of pressure on these resets. Just really clogging up the upfield. We haven't seen a throw really to a cutter aside from one throw, 10-yard gain to Yen. Washington trying to figure out some of their spacing a little bit here to see if they can generate some upfield targets. Now slowing the game down a little bit, BYU's zone challenging these Washington throwers to exhibit some patience, and there Banilo gives in, tries to shoot one up the sideline there. That one's going to be too far out of bounds for Savell. Nice defense after the turn here, but they're Good job by Ryan Savage to get open up the line. He's going to use that power position to throw deep, but Khalif El-Salam eats it up.
Yeah, El-Salam says no, and I think they're going to have to learn pretty quick that you can't challenge him in those one-on-one situations deep.
El-Salam's so good at just changing his pace, changing his speed. He can look like he's not paying attention and like he's just jogging, and then all of a sudden he's gunning it. Now Washington's found a few holes in the middle of the zone here, and they're knocking on the doorstep. El-Salam blades it into the middle for Yen, and that's another hold for Washington. After a sloppy start, things have cleared up a little bit. 4-3, the Sun Dodgers up on BYU.
So we're going to see this El-Salam block one more time. And really just an easy play for him, jumping the lane in front.
And right now, Khalif El-Salam has really taken over this game. He's got 2 blocks, 2 assists, a goal, 3 assists, excuse me, I believe, and a goal. Been pretty much a part of every good thing that's happened on the field for Washington so far.
Yeah, and, you know, BYU runs that zone. They get what they want. You know, Washington able to work it pretty quickly to midfield, but then they stalled out and were swing, try to jam it up the line. They turn it over. BYU gets a power position, and they huck, but they huck to El-Salam. You know, really need to think about next time, hey, let's fake that, come back underneath, get a little bit closer before we try to take our shot into the end zone.
And here Washington pulls, still looking for their first break. All holds early on in this one. Nice throw up again to open. Lots of yardage, and then he's putting up a forehand. It's going to drop in before the sideline, but a call is going to potentially send this one backwards.
I think maybe an injury. This Washington player may have tangled his feet. The BYU cutter.
Discussion on what should be the resolution here.
It's Tanner Jorgensen here. He was all alone when he caught that pass. So I'm not sure what exactly the discussion is. Maybe possibly an offensive foul. Either that or a discussion about what should happen with the injury. The throw was in the air before Washington player went down, so it'll stay with Jorgensen, and he's just going to shoot up the line for a goal into the hands of Hodson.
Nicely handled there by BYU. You know, you're right. It isn't pretty, but it works. It works for Kai, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, you watch them and you're not blown away by the precision or smooth flow of the offense, but they find the open player. They don't really turn it over a lot unless you force them with good defense. And, you know, like I said, they get their offense off the field, and then they put their defense out there, which I think is really the strongest part of their team.
Well, and not only that, but you're also not really like turned off by any of their areas of weakness. You're not like, man, this team's really bad at so-and-so, or they struggle in this area. They're just pretty rock solid. And then I think they make up for maybe a lack of a true defined strength with great energy. You know, this is a loud team. They're constantly engaged. They have a great sideline presence, and every guy is ready to jump on and make a play.
It's a great point, Keith. We saw them at warm-up, whether they were way up in a game beating Florida or they were getting blown out by Wisconsin. They had the same sideline energy, talk, cheers, and that has been something that's been really important for them throughout the course of this really strong season.
And ironically, Charlie, and we've joked a little bit about this off air and in the Ulti-World office, so to speak, but the cheers are actually pretty like standard, boring cheers. I'm pretty sure they're chanting D-line as we speak as they get ready to pull. It's like their team, their style of play is even in the cheering. Boring, rock-solid cheers, but with full energy and effort.
Absolutely. So you see them back to the zone here. More of a three-man cup look this time as opposed to that junkier look we saw a moment ago. Mark up on the handlers. try to stop the easy resets.
I like mixing up these looks, make these Washington players really think about where the spaces they can attack are, especially when really the Washington team is built around a lot of really young throwers. I mean, you've seen guys like Yen in the backfield, Steven Benelo, just a sophomore, Manny Eckert, just a freshman, as Eckert makes a nice layout grab to save that one. And making these young players think about new looks is a good way to attack their mental game as well as their physical game. Here's Eckert. Over to Benelo.
So once again, Washington gets to midfield pretty comfortably. Let's see if they can move past this spot and do better than they did last time, as we see a big layout just miss.
Washington still holding possession here. Washington trying to find some space against the zone. Near block there for BYU. They're getting their chances, and Washington seems to just have enough to get by them. Here's El Salam, 5 yards out. El Salam eyeing up the field. Finds Eckert in the middle. Cross field. Savell, Scoobers back into the middle. Nicely swung here by Washington. They really have explored the width of the field. BYU's yet to pick up those holes in the middle. Savell trying to find an option. Forced to throw a high stall hammer, but nobody there. And now here's Benelo, and he's going to fire it in with a quick throw to Yen. Second goal for Yen, but another hold. And Washington has a 5-4 lead here in the first half.
And great patience from the Washington O-line, but BYU had 3 or 4 chances to get a block on that point. I think they may stick with the zone for a while here, as it's definitely been a little bit of a struggle for Washington to get moving against that Z.
And not only were there a couple of near blocks for BYU, but some of those throws were very difficult. We saw a crossfield hammer that Manny Eckert had to lay out to save. We saw the scoober over the top that easily, the wind could have pulled that into the bad spaces there for Washington. So some dicey, tough plays for Washington to make, forced by this BYU zone.
So, nice start. After some sloppy first 2 points, we've had better looking offense from both teams, and on serve here in this beautiful day in Burlington.
Another pull here from Washington. Sun Dodgers still in search of a first break. Nice throw up the middle. Looks like the BYU offense is getting a little more comfortable against Washington's person defense. There's Birmingham on the open side. Big call. It's going to stop play. We haven't talked yet about Washington, the team history. Let's not forget that this was a team that went into Northwest Regionals last year looking like a top 10 team, a team that could go to nationals, and then found themselves on the outside looking in thanks to some really hot play from Western Washington and some untimely mistakes by Washington. And an interception there, speaking of untimely mistakes, this time by BYU, right near the end zone, intercepted there by Bjorg. And here's El Salama field pick call.
Time to work, baby. Time to work, Galen.
Now, the vertical stack here from Washington looking to push upfield. And El Salam calls his shot and then takes the deep shot. No chance there, but maybe an injury on the play. Xiaodong Liu trying to charge down that one, but excellently defended by Garden. And Liu will be forced to take an injury sub after that play. And El Salam, I think, had really tunnel vision on that after calling for that play out of the stoppage.
Watch this nice defensive effort from Garden one more time, and then just a tough landing there. But we're back underway here.
Now Garden comes in and goes to McKean on this open side. Here's Olpen. He's done a good job getting open under against El Salam. Garden, nice reset into the middle for Jorgensen. Back to Garden. Garden of Birmingham. And here's Garden. And I like the activity level in the backfield from BYU. The handlers don't settle very often, and that allows them to keep getting open on these resets. But not a lot of upfield going on, and a nice break throw from Birmingham. Finally gets things moving. Rush. OI Blade to Open, right in front of the end zone, and towed in.
You can hear the
McKean with a second
sideline
goal.
explode as they get the goal.
Making it pretty hard there is wide open McKean and forced to use his full length to tow that one in. But they make the play, they get the hold, they keep this game even, and now they'll put the pressure back on the Washington offense.
We'll have to keep an eye and see if McKean and El Salam match up at any point in this game. That could be a fun one to keep an eye on. McKean, most impressive player I've seen here to start for BYU.
Well, usually McKean's been pretty much behind the disc most of the game, and I don't think Washington usually will put El Salam on a handler. They have him on Ben Olpen, who's been one of the most effective cutters for BYU. Usually that matchup might actually be taken by Cooper Schumacher, one of the big athletes on the D-line for Washington. He's actually at a friend's wedding in Africa, I believe, so unable to play. It's a long trip from Africa to Seattle.
Yeah, Schumacher.
Longer than Atlanta, even.
Yeah. Schumacher, a key piece for them, and somebody they'll definitely be glad to have back for regionals and beyond. Dongyang Chen also out right now with an injury. So Washington missing a couple of their top players. And I think on a team that does struggle a little bit with depth down the roster, that hurts them more than other teams. So, keep an eye on that as we continue through the game here against BYU.
Yeah, we'll see how the second half really unfolds. That's where you'll see depth issues really creep in. So if guys start getting gas going into the second half, we've seen a lot of this same couple players here. As that one gets away, Jens throw too far for Benelo. And now BYU with a chance for a break. Caldwell, hammer. It's got 2 targets and hauled in there. That's BYU's break, and that's going to, oh, well, maybe not, folks. We got a call that may send this one backwards.
I think there was an unrelated call. So it's a goal for Nolan Hutchings. And BYU gets the game's first break. They go in front 6-5.
Yeah, I mean, simple mistake from Washington, and BYU capitalizes. This game got a lot cleaner after a very sloppy first point, but there, just an unforced error is enough for BYU to get the first break.
And, execution errors have been the difference maker so far. I think Washington, obviously that's only the first break they've given up, but they've also left some breaks on the table because of some mistakes in terms of throwing down the field, missing deep a couple times. They've had more chances than BYU in this game, but haven't been able to put them in. And that's been a little bit of a problem for them the entire weekend. And so it's BYU out in front, and you just get the sense this BYU team, they just keep coming at you. And this time they cash it in.
And they just don't leave a lot of room for error because they play so hard. They're just all over you. And now they've really put the pressure back onto Washington. Both of these teams with a chance to be the winner of the first Northwest Challenge Men's Division. It's a round-robin format. BYU 5-1, having lost to Oregon. Washington undefeated so far, 4-0.
So pull goes out of bounds here. And Washington will bring it to the brick mark. Maybe just in front of the brick mark is where it went out.
And Eckert, fine on the reset, gets over to the break side to Rush. Rush up ahead to Savell, who dishes to Eckert. Straight person defenses. This is the first, the wind's died down a little bit here, but this would have been the first down win point for either team on offense. Yen, around El Salam. Now about 18 yards out. Yen up the line. El Salam, around break. Benelow, release back in to Savell, and that's a hold for Washington. Good response to giving up that first break, but still now they are back behind BYU.
And dreadful marks from BYU on that point. They got broken consistently. They weren't necessarily setting a hard force. They were biting hard on every fake, and really they just got roasted on that person defense point. I would not be surprised to see them go back to the zone or at least look for a different set of personnel after that point.
Yeah, it's hard if you've played mostly zone during the game. As we take another look at the scoring throw here, Benelow stretching for the around and get it to Savell.
And that's just one of many bad marks set on that point by BYU.
And I think if you've been playing zone most of a game, you might not actually know the matchups quite yet of how you want to line people up. And BYU's probably still figuring that out as they go along. And certainly, as we discussed earlier, the conversation about how USAU has to handle BYU's particular situation, that right now, if you're catching up with us, having put themselves in a position to win a strength bid for the Northwest region, but do not compete in a series because they cannot play on Sunday due to a myriad of reasons. But as far as I can tell, that is a non-starter. There is no Sunday play.
At BYU, which is a religious institution, they do not allow their club sports athletes to play on Sunday, and there are no exceptions to that. And this is true for all the NCAA sports. Now, the NCAA, while they are no longer required to accommodate BYU and other similar teams that have restrictions like BYU's, they do often do so anyway. And there's even been some famous examples. The women's rugby team for BYU made the national championships a few years ago, and the championship game was on Sunday. They didn't play. That was it. They didn't reschedule the game. The other team
forfeited the national championship.
Right. They forfeited the national championship game. Now, a lot of sports have moved it so that BYU can compete in conference tournaments and those types of things. The thing is, for USA Ultimate, it's a different world when you're talking about club sports, and it's really difficult to consider a scenario in which you change the format or the rules for a single team. This is really the only team in the country that would need something like this in order to compete at regionals.
You know, we'll see if USAU will have to consider what changes they can make right now. Washington considering what changes they can make to try and generate a first break. Around break there from BYU, and then followed up by an inside break from Jorgensen. McKean, his toes a little bit behind, and Washington able to finish the play. Nice block there from Galen Kornowski. Now Benelow checking in to go the other way. Here's El Salam, near sideline. El Salam trying to find an option. High stall punt. Easy block there from Birmingham. Nicely defended by BYU. Really forced that high stall option with some nice reset defense. But a huge layout D from Khalisa El Salam is going to get it back.
And he has clearly been the best player on the field so far in this one, coming up with big plays on both sides of the disc. Benelow picks up for Washington.
Hot Jason.
The reset options for Washington non-existent here, and it's going to generate a turn for BYU, who has struggled with these downwind hucks. He's overshot pretty much every one of them so far that they've taken this game.
Yeah, and McKean was wide open there. Just a miss there on the forehand from Hodson.
Taking another look at it. El Salam
just comes and jumps the route.
Just a different kind of athlete than I think BYU is used to dealing with.
There you go, Ben. Nice. Shut it down, Ben. Find your man. Find your man, Ben.
Low throw
Find
there,
your man,
but
Ben.
collected
Nice switch. Get
on
up,
York.
Stoppage here.
Hey, it was nice help, Ben.
And the reset defense that BYU has had this point has generated 2 turns already from Washington, but marks fail them there as
There you go.
break throw goes up.
Saki, your last back. Dakota, your last back.
Looking for another reset here. Benelo working for it against Jorgensen.
Lance, Lance.
Benelo's throw is a little too hot there for his receiver, and now McKean picks up quickly. Guarded to McKean. All the way around to Birmingham.
Inside. Clear, Ben. Inside.
Benelo bidding against Jorgensen, just misses that one. Open. Up line to Jorgensen, and now I believe a pick, but after the completion, Benelo picked on trying to put on the mark. Stops play here, and now BYU just a yard or so outside. And there's a turnover here. I'm not sure if there's going to be a call from Birmingham on the play. Does look like it's got a foul call, and they're going to discuss whether or not this one should be a score. Looks like they're going to take it on the goal line here. Bid there from the Washington defender, Kornowski, trying to get his second block of the point, but results in a foul. Pick call in the stack after the reset gets the disc off the open sideline.
And disc in the hands of Garden, and that's where you want it if you're BYU. He's been a super steady handler for them all weekend.
Keene, a good target here, but instead they'll go over to Flanning for his second goal, and BYU holds.
And a big hold there, up front 7-6. And just have been the team that's been doing a better job of executing here in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the exceptional play of Khalil El Salam, you kind of feel like BYU would be winning this game, but El Salam has just been a force on the field.
Well, and you know, we knew that about this Washington team coming in, that it's El Salam has to play great if they're going to do well. He's playing great so far in this game. The problem is, especially with some of their better players missing this weekend, it's tough for them to get a lot going if he's not involved in the play.
And, you know, going back to our conversation about the implications of BYU's success here, as you said, it really is a different animal than what the varsity sports are dealing with for what USAUS do. The resources are different. The demands on the players are very different. Varsity sports honestly don't really conflict that often on Sundays. I think varsity baseball is really one of the biggest offenders. Usually teams will travel and play a 3-game series on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the BYU teams typically don't do that. But for most sports, college football, you play on Saturdays. Basketball, it's fairly easy to avoid since it's a single-game schedule. With Ultimate, you got to move 4 or 5 games to change days. We see Khalif El Salam looking deep for a hold to take the half here for Washington. And a score here from Washington, a quick hold after the El Salam huck.
Yeah, all tied up now, back at 7s. So we'll head into first half point, if you will, as we come up here, both teams. And I always like these points because players know it, coaches know it. They're extremely important points to win. Obviously, BYU up a break right now. If they can hold, they're going to get the pull out of into the begin the second half, which is going to give them an opportunity to extend that lead. Washington, of course, wants to get it back on serve. I think you'll see top lines out there for both teams.
And Washington's really had to push some of these top players. Stephen Benelow playing a lot early on in this game. Really playing both ways, is trying to marshal the defense the other way, but he actually is going to take this point off. They'll bring Manny Eckert over to the D-line from the O-line, as well as Khalif El-Salam. The wind picking back up here. Now it feels like a bit of a crosswind going away from the camera to the far sideline. Shifting the field, the low side, high side situation. You'll see the high side as the near side of the field. And one of the stronger gusts I think we felt today. Been pretty prime conditions over the course of the weekend, and we've really been pining for a nice weather weekend after really just dreary weekends for much of the year. And El-Salam's pull is going to drop out of bounds right next to the booth. And set BYU up on the brick mark with a chance to take the half. And McKean checks in against Washington zone. Now here's guarded. Not a lot of pressure on the resets from Washington. They're looking to take away upfield options. Giving up horizontal and reverse throws here. Jorgensen. Back to McKean. BYU just moving backwards right now. Taking what's open.
And BYU has almost got a second layer wall right now. They're going to have to work against this Washington zone by looking over the top.
Washington transitioning into person after, I'm pretty sure BYU in about 10 throws gotten about -5 yards here, but that's enough for Washington to switch into their person defense. And here's Garden getting up the line. I'm going to slide low for that one, but a pick call is going to stop play.
Yeah, Gardner with some nice footwork to earn position on that strike cut.
Garden, inside break to get it in the middle to Jorgensen. Nice switching of the field here by BYU. Using some active backfield play to open up spaces, but a pick's going to stop play. Coming back in. McKean working to get open against Schuster. Drawing the tough matchup against McKean, who's been the most effective BYU player so far. This is a nice defensive point here from Washington, but BYU not showing too much impatience. Around break there from McKean. And then an OI backhand looking for the back corner, and it comes off the hands of Birmingham. The half slipping through his fingers. Now Washington with a chance to break to take it back.
All that work done by the backfield for BYU. McKean with some fantastic work getting open for resets and throwing some nice breaks, and then just a brick for Birmingham in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, great break throw from McKean to set up that opportunity. Now we'll see what some of these O-line transplants for Washington can do. Khalif El-Salam with the disc. He has been making plays left and right for the Sun Dodgers. Now he's back with the disc. Cutter's looking to get deep space. Nice counter here from Rush, able to find some space underneath. Here's El-Salam in the middle. Rush. And here's Schuster on the up line, and he's going to shoot looking for El-Salam, and you like that target, and that's a break for Washington at take half. El-Salam with another goal.
Yeah, just a great possession right there for Washington. Nice shot up the field. El Salam hanging back and then accelerates for the goal. And Washington takes halftime here, 8-7. We're back on serve. It'll be BYU receiving out of the half. We'll be back in about 10 minutes for the start of the second half.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our green line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
Welcome back to Ulti World's coverage of the 2016 Northwest Challenge. BYU and Washington taking each other on in pool play on the men's division. If you missed the first half, you missed a pretty good one. Washington breaking back at the end of the half to put the game back on serve after BYU got the first break of the game. Each team with one break, and now teams are going to take the first advantage. They're essentially going to 0-0 out of the half.
Yeah, and really what you see in that first half is strong team play from BYU, doing the same thing they've been doing all weekend. And Washington really led by the play of Khalif El Salam. Super impressive. We see him getting ready to pull here for the team. And I think we didn't keep close track of the final stat line, but
I think it was 4 assists, 2 goals, and 3 blocks.
That's the kind of half he had, and he'll need to keep that up here in the second half if Washington wants to take this one. So we're underway here in the second half.
Tanner Jorgensen fielding the pull and giving it up to McKean, who's been the most effective member of BYU Chi in the first half. So a nice half from Gardner, who's got the disc as well. And a zone look from Washington, trying to stifle the offense here. Nicely navigated by Birmingham and Flannery, and they just dish it with about 5-yard throws.
Wow.
The whole length of the field.
I mean,
Ben Open closes it out with the goal.
I don't know that I've ever seen anything like what we just saw right there. I mean, you see a team, two-man game up the field a little bit, but to see them go almost 40 or 50 yards without ever having to do anything other than quick dishes, that's amazing. Let's take another look at that. Ping,
1,
ping.
2, 3, 4, 5. Finally got a new guy in there. 6, 7.
And Washington's defense just dogged it that whole point. Never got in front, never caught up, and BYU walks it in to tie it up at 8.
And one of the BYU players coming off the field after celebrating goes, "It's kind of hard to be excited if it's that easy."
So,
not the kind of deep point Washington looked to start the game with
No.
here, or the second half, excuse me. Draws it even at 8-8. And both of these teams still in position to win this round-robin tournament. Washington undefeated at 4-0. BYU 5-1 with a loss to Oregon, who I believe is also undefeated. Really, those three teams have asserted themselves as the most likely three to win the tournament. Washington playing against Oregon tomorrow. BYU wrapping up their play today.
yeah, Oregon playing UBC right now, up big, 10-5. And that's without a lot of their top players, including Chris Strubb. There's an illness going around the team right now. And despite that, Oregon taking it to UBC.
Manny Ecker with the around break looking for Benelo. He's going to take a shot. There was not really any separation there, but throws it all the way to the open side, and hard work on defense there by Jordan Hill.
And you called it, Steve. Steve. You're not Steve, you're Keith. Keith, you called it. There was just no room for that huck.
Benelo, I don't know if he looked or not, but BYU giving it back there. That one coming off the hands of Bryant Boyer. And a net positive, I guess, for Washington as Benelo comes in. Benelo taking another shot. Another contested one, but skying for the grab is Washington. Eli Savell on the goal. 9-8. Washington reclaims the lead. And Benelo obviously has been one of the most important parts of this Washington offense, but I think taking some really potentially low percentage shots during this point and has quite a few turnovers in this game, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true, but he's going to be a high volume guy for them and a steady player. I think sometimes though, try to tune it up a little bit in terms of decision making. I think that first look, especially, just a risky throw. I mean, he did tail it a little bit away from the BYU player, but it was neck and neck all the way down the field for those two, and would have had to be a really nice play from his receiver. Why take that shot when you can instead maybe swing it, work it around back to the other side, and try for something a little bit more secure.
I mean, if that's Khalif, a guy who's pretty much won his matchup in every situation during this game, maybe I take that shot, but that's just a hard one. The Washington D-line streaking down to meet this BYU offense. A person defense here. Haven't seen a ton of it this game. Jorgensen into the middle for Hudson. Hudson finds some space for Flannery, and he looks to the end zone. A call on that reception.
It's just not a good foul call, honestly. That was a drop. But it looks like maybe there's no contest after all. I mean, it looked like a straight drop. But there must have been some contact. And so it will stay down there.
Van Olpen on the goal line here. And a nice hard cut there from Jorgensen gets him the goal on the Olpen on the assist. And more holds, ties it up.
And just a random side note, in the disc sports world, not specifically Ultimate related, but in Nevada right now, they are holding a competition to see if players can set new distance throwing records. They go out to the flat desert in Nevada, where it's not only extremely flat, but also quite windy, and a lot of top disc golfers head out there, and Simon Lizotte set a new world record for distance of a Frisbee. Threw it 275.5 meters, which is just over 900 feet.
I believe he's breaking his own record.
That's correct. He held the world record. He set the world record last year and just broke it using the same disc today. He's the first person ever to throw a Frisbee 900 feet in an official capacity, and it may be the first ever regardless. That's over 3 football fields, an incredible achievement, and he's well known as one of the biggest throwers in the world, and it'd be exciting to watch him play Ultimate sometime.
Yeah, I'm sure the Deep Cutters would love to go long for that one. Manny Eckert against the BYU zone. finds a hole for Seville. Now a little bit of pressure on Benelo, but he finds a hole and then now hits El Salam on the line.
And this BYU zone has not really put a lot of pressure on Washington. We did see them get to one break with it, but mostly they seemed a little susceptible to fakes, and Washington has been able to work it through fairly comfortably.
And honestly, the wind's died down a little bit. The wind has been a little variable during this round, and when it's gusting a little, some of these throws get a little more challenging, and Washington team's apt to make some of the try and make some of the difficult plays, and maybe the wind can help here. But right now it's pretty still, and you're seeing these throwers pretty much break the mark at will, and so the cup is just taking away some upfield options while they swing. Backfield looking pretty comfortable. Here's Eckert over to El Salam. And Washington slowly marching towards the goal line. Now about 8 yards out. El Salam blades across field to Seville. Now here's Eckert. BYU still in it. Eckert firing a forehand through the cup, and that generates enough space for Seville to get up line and hit Benelo for the hole. Then Washington sneaks back into the lead, 10-9.
Yeah, easy work there for Washington. And it's worth noting, we already mentioned that Cooper Schumacher and Dongyoung Chen are out for them this weekend, and they're also playing in this game without Tomas Delgado, another one of their key pieces. Delgado has been dealing with a groin injury since the Stanford invite, and he's been playing this weekend, but I guess last round against Montana State, they had a long game, and it started to flare up on him a little bit, so he's sitting this game out. And so, I think that adds to what Washington is having to do here, which is to play without three of their most important players on a team that doesn't have tons of roster depth. But looking good on that point going up against that BYU zone.
Yeah, a nice patient possession there against a somewhat conservative BYU zone. Not a particularly aggressive zone tactics there from them, but I like testing Washington in that way a little bit, but going to need to generate a break somewhere in here. Wind picking up a little bit again. A big pull from El Salam. Now up the middle to Birmingham. Over to Jorgensen. In the middle for Hudson. And a stoppage. And more person defense here from Washington. Done a pretty good job defending the break side at the point of attack, and a travel call here against McKean from Schuster. And
yeah, BYU's been traveling a lot in this game, and they haven't been calling it a ton. And I wonder if somebody said on the sideline, "Hey, watch the travel," because especially McKean, he likes to slowly roll out of his cuts.
Now here's Jorgensen, who's been working the inside break a lot this game, and finds Flannery. And Flannery with a nice around break there to Hudson for another BYU hold. And we're trading here out of the half, 10-10 between BYU and Washington.
Yeah, once again, it's like BYU just does the little things right. Flannery has that pass come in really high and manages to stick it, and that opens up another goal for BYU. McKean continuing to be impressive in the backfield, travels notwithstanding.
Yeah, this is a bit more reminiscent of the beginning of the game where the two teams, they've almost looked like they've regressed back into kind of the feeling it out stage. There's not a lot of aggressiveness from either team, particularly on defense. And I imagine you're going to start seeing the tenor pick up as we get later into the game. You're going to see the teams start to pressure each other and force some adjustments out of the offenses.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what BYU runs here after kind of watching their zone get eaten alive last point. But they also, you know, you think back to when I was just here, the "We Love Baseball" cheer from BYU. They ran man defense a few points ago, and their marks just got roasted by these good Washington handlers. So we'll see what they try here.
Again, holding against a person defense from BYU. Eckert able to get up the line. Now he's looking deep for Benelo. Hangs that one, though, and doesn't even look like it'll be in bounds there for the offense. Eckert a chance to throw that to the break side and really give Benelo an advantage, but a little too OI and a little too high.
Yeah, it kind of popped it up. A little bit of an air bounce on the throw, and can't do that on a long huck like that one.
The freshman coming up with a mistake that gives BYU their first chance at a break in the second half. Big bid from Benelo, but not enough.
Another travel, but no call on that one.
Eccles hucking a jump ball, really, and that throw goes up a couple seconds earlier. Maybe he hits a guy in stride, but instead it's just going to be a turnover. But there might be a call. Players looking around. So are we.
I can't really imagine what the call would be because there was certainly no contact at the mark. Maybe there's an injury.
Yeah, Benelo after the bid forced to take an injury. Schuster subbing in.
So the injury substitution finished up, and it will be Yen picking up for Washington.
Deep stack here from Washington. Perhaps just giving a lot of space to Khalif El-Salam. Eckert, inside forehand. Too far out in front. Schuster tries to make the second effort, but not enough. Now here's Hill. Around break. Eccles back to Hill. Hill just nothing moving upfield.
Well, he had a swing pass open and didn't take it, but goes over to this side now.
Bryant Boyer here. Hill. Up the middle to Hodgson. Kevin Hodgson looking for an option. Nice around break to Hill. And you know this BYU D-line offense earlier, very aggressive, taking lots of deep shots. This is a patient possession, switching fields, taking resets, and there a baby hammer into the end zone gets BYU the break. Bryant Boyer on the score, Caldwell on the assist. BYU reclaims the advantage.
Well, I think what's impressive about that, you know, you mentioned the patience, but it's also the fact that that was a pure D-line for BYU. They haven't really crossed over a lot of their top offensive players onto defense, and they were able to go get that break while letting their O-line players rest. So we take another look here at the score. Just patience, a little bit of a dicey throw there, but hangs on, and then a wide open break side cut to the front cone.
Stephen Benelo back on the field here for Washington as they put out an O-line, and I wonder if this is where you might see the difference in depth, especially with the injuries to Washington. A lot of guys trotting back out there who put a lot of mileage on them this game. BYU able to put out some fresh legs. Benelo, Eckert, Yen, El-Salam, Savell, all back out there for Washington. These are guys we've been watching play all game. You can hear that loud BYU sideline in the background. This is a team with energy, with buy-in, with cohesiveness. And they're looking to upset the powers of the Northwest. Here's Yen. Over across to Savell. Benelo, near sideline against the BYU zone. Again, going to this kind of loose conservative zone, giving up a lot of horizontal movement. Crowd in the upfield.
Now, looks like a fast counter contact call for Benelo. It's going to reset the stall count. Benelo, crossfield to Eckert. Yan in the middle.
BYU sagging the lanes really hard, trying to prevent that upfield motion.
And I don't mind that BYU's being patient, although there's a crossfield throw for Benelo. I think he struggled really with possession in this game, and so now BYU with a chance to break again. The first team to get 2 breaks consecutively.
BYU has been turning it on late after we have a stoppage downfield. BYU pulled away from Victoria at right about this point in the game. They got ahead of UBC and pulled away late. It's been their MO. They stay consistent throughout the game, and they don't seem to fatigue. Lots of height, lots of athleticism for this BYU team.
Honey with the disc here. Open side throw. Now around break for Ryan Savage. A lot of new names on this BYU line. Chance to get a break despite having not played very much, and now they're just inches away. Honey into the end zone, towed in for the score. BYU, well, Washington does not feel, they don't know that this one was in, but they will call it in. No observers on this one. The players find resolution. And that's a score for BYU. The toe in there from Matt DeLonge.
That's huge for BYU. Up 2 now. That's the biggest lead for either team. Back-to-back breaks, 3-0 run.
And I think this, to me, that's such a great score for BYU. You sub in really your second unit defense. You put on a whole new squad, basically, of fresh legs after getting a break, and you're still able to get a break. Another break on this Washington offense, I don't know what kind of, that mistake was unnecessary from Washington. You know, they had plenty of reset options, but tried to make a more difficult throw, and it finally, got them.
Yeah, and, to be honest, I think you're really seeing the difference between these two teams. Yes, Washington's top-end talent better than BYU's, but BYU can send out a brand new D-line of players we've hardly talked about in this game, and they can get a break. The depth for BYU and the fundamentals all the way down the roster are there, and that's why I think you're seeing them take down some of these more top-heavy Northwest teams like UBC, like Washington. Obviously, this game's not over yet, and Washington very capable of making a comeback here, but just an impressive weekend overall from BYU.
Yeah,
and opening up lots of conversations that we've already talked a little bit about this game.
We talked a little bit in the first half about BYU's perhaps inability to match up with elite one-on-one stars. So why do it? Why try and go one-on-one anymore? They've gone to a zone. Khalif El-Salam, no blocks, no assists, no goals in the second half after a dominant first half.
So a big point coming up here for the Washington O-line.
Yeah, they're going to turn to their top-end players. I mean, this is mostly the same 7 guys that were just on the field. And that's given up 2 consecutive breaks. And body language for Washington, looks like that break really took a lot out of them.
Oregon leading UBC 13-9. Of course, you can follow along with scores from both divisions here at the Northwest Challenge at multiworld.com/live. Watch the live stream and follow along with our live updating scoreboards.
Programming note, we had a flex game coming up after this based on how they need to reseed in the women's division, and I believe we will have Whitman against Stanford in the next round.
That's right, Keith. Should be a great one.
Yeah, 2 of the best teams in the country. as we are apt to get pretty much any two you pick here in the women's division.
Pick a game in the women's division. It's going to be between two of the top teams in the country. Yeah, sideline intensity rising now for a big point here for both teams.
Good mental test for this Washington O-line. How did they respond after a pair of breaks and a high-energy BYU defense?
Standard man-to-man here for BYU.
I don't think a single one of the 7 BYU players was on last point. But a quick score for Washington. Yeah, and able to haul that one in after Washington got to the break side. And a much-needed hold from the Sun Dodgers.
Yeah, and with the soft cap now on and hard cap coming in just under 15 minutes, it's going to come down to the wire here, Keith.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Washington quickly start stacking these D-lines in an effort to get some offensive talent, to get some breaks, take another look at that quick score.
Well, and once again, BYU tries to go back to that man-to-man defense, and it doesn't really work out for them. Washington's done a nice job against it all game.
Washington, we'll see what kind of defense they go. I mean, at this point, you really need to get a turn. And their zone defenses have been pretty conservative. Like BYU's, not put a lot of pressure on. So I expect them to go to the person-to-person defense with the hope to generate some matchups they can win. El Salam taking this point off, but surprisingly, and here's Schuster with the pull. They're going to leave it to the D-line to do it, but Schuster's pull is going to trail out of bounds. Looks like a zone coming from Washington.
And just so you know, this game is going to be played to 14. Cap going on for BYU, got to 12.
BYU with a 12-11 advantage at this juncture. There's McKean up the middle to Birmingham. Some matchup changes here from Washington as we see the jump ball go up, and huge leap there from Olpen, but the disc just a little too far out of his hands. A tough shot there from BYU, but Washington, a chance to get that break back.
Yeah, and it's been Washington taking more of those questionable deep looks, but that was one from BYU, just trying to put it up there and hope somebody makes a play, and good defense from Washington.
And the rhythm of this game so far has been very back and forth. Usually when one team's taken an advantage, it hasn't lasted very long. So certainly wouldn't be out of the norm for Washington to find a way to get this break here. Great defense in the backfield by BYU, but Washington sneaks away. Here's Schuster. Now Washington finding some upfield space, looking for Schuster, but just too far. Kornowski's outside in forehand, just catching a little too much air, and Schuster not able to get there. Maybe some signs of fatigue. Matchup change here. Alan Lynn now on McKean. Schuster's mostly taking that matchup today. See how Lynn handles it, but a pick call. Throw goes to Gardner anyway, and Gardner with the disc. Break side throw to Jorgensen. Quick continue to McKean. McKean up the middle to Flannery. Inside break there for Olpen. Great rhythm here from BYU. They're advancing quickly. Here's McKean in the backfield. McKean trying to get around for the break, calls the foul. Or the contact, excuse me. We'll continue playing.
Step up, Allen. Up.
Offhand break there to Jorgensen, and he's going to tag that break in. A nice hold there. Hodson on the goal.
And Jorgensen Doesn't really have the smoothest looking throws, but in BYU fashion gets the job done. And BYU's 1 point away from a win here over Washington. And you talk about a statement weekend. BYU already has wins in hand over UBC, over Victoria, over Brown, and now they could add one here over Washington. What a weekend for this BYU team. Another look here, a little lefty backhand from McKean, and then kind of a, I don't really know what to call that, inside backhand, I guess, into the end zone, but it works.
A score is what you call it, Charlie.
That's absolutely.
And that hold for BYU really puts Washington's offense in dire straits. And I will tell you, I think that they look a little gassed, and the energy between these two teams so contrasting. BYU really seems to feel like they are in control of this game. Washington looks a little defeated, a little gassed. They're quiet, their heads are hanging, their hands are on their hips. I really think that the short rotation for Washington is starting to take a toll. I'm sure that they missed the legs of a couple of the key players that they're missing. And I swear this BYU team has probably used 20 different cheers during the course of this game.
What was that one we just heard?
Mountain Lions, maybe?
This rolled out the back of the end zone, so Washington begins at the front of their end zone.
Khalif Salam trying to open up some deep space against Dylan Terry, and very physical there. A lot of bumping in those lanes. BYU not afraid of physicality at all. Now, a punt here for El Salam's going to blade right to him. Eckert to El Salam underneath. Benelo taking off. El Salam manages to step around and get a backhand. Benelo goes up for it, comes down with the goal. Washington holds. Benelo making a nice play downfield. El Salam with a great throw to set him up.
Yeah, Benelo going over the top of Hodgson and keeping them in this one. Need back-to-back breaks, though. See this again. El Salam backhands, maybe an and one. And Benelo climbs the ladder. Oregon closed it out in the other game here, a big game in the men's division, 15-10. And if Washington goes down here to BYU, Oregon will be the only undefeated team left in the men's division.
Yeah, BYU's only loss was to that Oregon team. Washington currently undefeated, so Washington, who plays Oregon tomorrow, will need to beat Oregon to force the three-way tie between the teams and send it to point diff.
Yeah, we'll have that Oregon-Washington game for you tomorrow. And, you know, from what we've seen of Oregon, Washington's going to need to play a lot better if they want to have a shot in that game. And, of course, Oregon, the measuring stick for the Northwest. Washington long wanting to get over that team. But it's been a long time since Washington has beaten Oregon. Yeah, but it'll be a good one to watch tomorrow. Hope you'll join us for that tomorrow morning.
Washington now in need of a break. They have just a single break during the course of this game. Now they need two to win it. Benelo ready to pull. Standard BYU O-line coming out, and Gardner fields the pull and centers to McKean. Jorgensen open on the break side.
McKean's low backhand break has been one of the best throws we've seen this game.
Here he is looking to line up a deep shot. Nothing's there, and again he goes to that low backhand break. Jorgensen goes up and snags that one. And really, I think that the O-line guys crossing over right now to this D-line look tired. And Jorgensen able to just step around Benelo to get that break off, although this one's going to go back.
I'm guessing we had a travel call. Didn't see it myself, but I would not be surprised.
Here's the reset to Gardner. Birmingham able to find some underneath space and then goes up the line. And Gardner, big bid there from Washington. Not able to generate a turn. Resetting to McKean. Lots of around space, and he's going to put it out into the space. Attacking is Flannery, and he comes up with the grab. The wind gave the defense a shot at that, but Flannery makes no mistake in attacking the disc and coming up with the score.
And BYU takes the game 14-12 over Washington. What a win. And, you know, there were some questions. You know, our Northwest team's going to try to give BYU a few freebies here and there, try to get them some extra ranking points, get another bid. But, you know, you look at the way this Washington team played and the way that UVic and UBC played yesterday, that is not what happened. UBC came in and played their top guys the last 6-7 points of the game, and here Washington, you see Khalif El-Salam playing all but, 3-4 points this game. That's just a hard-earned victory from BYU. They're a good team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking about potentially a 4-bid region as we take another look at the game winner. Here is a nice reset, and McKean has just too much space. He's going to put that out, and nice attack there from Flannery. He had a great game. BYU very solid in a region that's probably going to have 4 bids or so. They've shown at this tournament that they are a team that could earn a spot at nationals, so they were able to compete. The talent level is there.
You look at it right now, they're the second best team in this region. I think you could definitely argue that Washington's the better team at full strength. They're missing a few of their top guys today, and I certainly wouldn't blame you for saying that, but no doubt that this UBC team could go to regionals and earn a bid to nationals. And I think the question is, will that even be a possibility? I think we're going to be having that conversation over the next few weeks.
I'll tell you what, BUY on BYU right now, that is the way to go.
Did it take you the whole game to come up with that one, Keith?
Yep, I wrote it down like 3 days ago. That's not true. Thanks for calling me Steve, Charlie. Had a great game today. Look forward to seeing you in the next round. We've got Stanford and Whitman coming up.
Yeah, two great teams. Women's division action continues next. Game coming up in about 15 minutes. Final score here, BYU 14, Washington 12. We'll see you back here for the final round here on Saturday at the Northwest Challenge.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Every time we press the license, we play better. Let's go, keep down the field.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.